Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of XCOM Multiplayer. Today's episode is slightly different because for one thing, I'm playing against Shen Sankuzun, also known as Sankuzun on, that's how I pronounce his name. I don't know what's the proper pronunciation. I'm sure he will, not sure, but maybe he will see this and correct me. You may or may not know that we are going to be participating in a broadcaster tournament organized by one of the casters, and I think it's organized more or less through the 2K forums. There should be a link in my description. If it's not, then you're welcome to shout at me. So we played this game. This is a test. This is not an actual tournament, and we played it, as you can see, on TrainYard. There was like a process of eliminating the maps, and we ended up with TrainYard. There's a couple of things I want to say about this before. There's not going to be an actual step-by-step analysis of what's going on and commentary for this video. I'm going to be doing something different. But first, in my defense, I wanted to say that before you actually see this video, that the general idea was that I tried to flank him on the left, and he was kind of spreading his units around. And here I must say that the positioning of Shin's units and generally his skills of positioning units are almost perfect, and it's very hard to play against him because of this. He basically makes no mistakes, in my experience anyway. Maybe he makes mistakes with more experienced players and so on. We fought a long, hard battle. The actual video, the actual raw footage is 50 plus minutes. I kind of whittled it down for you to around 30. So that it's more manageable for you guys. And I did have twice I had some glitches, when the turn skips, the teleporting bug, or whatever you want to call it. I completely wasted my sniper, as you will see. And what else is there to say about the match? Yeah, basically in the end I just end up near my spawn, and that's where the final showdown happens. There was a bit of disappointing for me from Shen's side, because apparently I don't know, I still think that maybe he was kidding, but apparently he was using the Shen switch on me, which is kind of weird, because I remember him saying in one of his videos that that's something that would be he would not respect a person who uses it in a ranked match, and this was kind of a tournament match. It was a test, but I know anyway. I still love you, Shen, but heroes must fall, I guess. So you did, Shen, you fell. Okay, so for the rest of the time for this match, I'm gonna be reading poetry by one of my favorite poets. It's Charles Bukowski, and there it is. It's for your enjoyment. The first thing I'm gonna read is called "The Genius of the Crowd." It's one of his probably most famous poems. It's definitely the one that got me hooked on Bukowski's poetry, because I think I first found his prose and thought it was great, but then I slowly realized that this guy wrote much more poetry than prose, and this is, I guess, the poem that spoke to me the most at that time anyway, and it's still one of my favorites. It's actually printed out hanging on my wall. So I'm just gonna take a gulp of this ale, and then I'm gonna read The Genius of the Crowd. There's enough treachery, hatred, violence, absurdity in the average human being to supply any given army on any given day. And the best at murder are those who preach against it. And the best at hate are those who preach love. And the best at war, finally, are those who preach peace. Those who preach God need God. Those who preach peace do not have peace. Those who preach love do not have love. Beware of the preachers. Beware the knowers. Beware those who are always reading books. Beware those who either detest poverty or are proud of it. Beware those quick to praise, for they need praise in return. Beware those quick to censure, they are afraid of what they do not know. Beware those who seek constant crowds, they are nothing alone. Beware the average man, the average woman. Beware their love is average. 6 average. But there is genius in their hatred. There is enough genius in their hatred to kill you, to kill anybody. Not wanting solitude, not understanding solitude, they will attempt to destroy anything that differs from their own. Not being able to create art, they will not understand art. They will consider their failure as creators only as a failure of the world. Not being able to love fully, they will believe your love incomplete. And then they will hate you. And their hatred will be perfect. Like a shining diamond, like a knife, like a mountain, like a tiger, like a hemlock. Their finest art. So that was Genius of the Crowd. Let's move on to something less depressing maybe, though it's kind of hard with Bukowski. But I don't want to go all like... everything he basically wrote is kind of sad, because if it's not, then I kind of agree with him that it's probably not poetry. But which one shall we do next? There's Nirvana, which is kind of happy, but I'll probably do the history of a tough motherfucker first, and then I will read the poem called Nirvana to you. Okay, so this is the history of a tough motherfucker. He came to the door one night, wet, thin, beaten, and terrorized. A white, cross-eyed, tailless cat. I took him in and fed him, and he stayed. Grew to trust me until a friend drove up the driveway and ran him over. I took what was left to a vet who said, "Not much chance. Give him these pills. His backbone is crushed, but it was crushed before and somehow mended. If he lives, he'll never walk. Look at these x-rays. He's been shot. Look here, the pellets are still there. Also, he once had a tail, somebody cut it off." I took the cat back. It was a hot summer, one of the hottest in decades. I put him on the bathroom floor, gave him water and pills. He wouldn't eat. He wouldn't touch the water. I dipped my finger into it and wet his mouth, and I talked to him. I didn't go anywhere. I put in a lot of bathroom time and talked to him and gently touched him, and he looked back at me with those pale blue crossed eyes, and as the days went by he made his first move, dragging himself forward by his front legs. The rear ones wouldn't work. He made it to the litter box, crawled over and in. It was like the trumpet of possible victory, blowing in the bathroom into the city. I related to that cat. I'd had it bad, not that bad, but had bad enough. One morning he got up, stood up, he fell back down and just looked at me. "You can make it," I said to him. He kept trying, getting up, falling down. Finally he walked a few steps. He was like a drunk. The rear legs just didn't want to do it, and he fell again, rested, then got up. You know the rest. Now he's better than ever, cross-eyed, almost toothless, but the grace is back, and that look in the eyes never left. And now sometimes I'm interviewed. They want to hear about life and literature, and I get drunk, and I hold up my cross-eyed, shot, run-over, detailed cat, and I say, look at this. And they don't understand. They say something like, "You say you've been influenced by Celine?" "No," I hold the cat up. "By what happens, by things like this, by this, by this." I shake the cat, hold him up. In the smoke and drunken light, he's relaxed, he knows. It's then that the interviews end, although I am proud sometimes when I see the pictures later, and there I am, there is the cat, and we are photographed together. He too knows it's bullshit, but that somehow it all helps. Okay, so that was the history of a tough motherfucker. And now we can perhaps move on to Nirvana. You may have heard Nirvana before in... it was performed by Tom Waits at one point. I don't remember which album it is, but there's an album, I think it appears on the album as a track, where he's just reading, there's like sort of ambient music in the background, and he's just reading this poem. So I'm just gonna have another gulp of ale, and then I'll read Nirvana. Okay, so this is Nirvana. Not much chance. Completely cut loose from purpose. He was a young man riding a bus through North Carolina, on the way to somewhere, and it began to snow, and the bus stopped at a little cafe in the hills, and the passengers entered. He sat at the counter with the others. He ordered, and the food arrived. The meal was particularly good, and the coffee. The waitress was unlike women he had known. She was unaffected. There was a natural humor which came from her. The fry cook said crazy things. The dishwasher in the back laughed. A good, clean, pleasant laugh. The young man watched the snow through the windows. He wanted to stay in that cafe forever. The curious feeling swam through him that everything was beautiful there, that it would always stay beautiful there. Then the bus driver told the passenger that it was time to board. The young man thought, I'll just sit here. I'll just stay here. But then he rose and followed the others into the bus. He found his seat and looked at the cafe through the bus window. Then the bus moved. Down a curve, downward, out of the hills. The young man looked straight forward. He heard the other passengers speaking of other things, or they were reading, or attempting to sleep. They had not noticed the magic. The young man put his head to one side, closed his eyes, pretending to sleep. There was nothing else to do, just to listen to the sound of the engine, the sound of the tires in the snow. And that's Nirvana. Now, let's see what we can read next. Let's see what's up with the video. How's this going? Alright, so we're more or less halfway in there. And I think, yeah, this is just recently discovered where Shin's units were, and he's pretty spread out. And yeah, that's basically that sector. He kind of pins down my sniper over there. I completely wasted the sniper, I think, in this game. It was very unprofessional of me. But, you know, you can't catch them all, can you? Or can you? I don't know. Can you catch them all? No idea. Right. Let's read this one. This is called A Gold Pocket Watch. My grandfather was a tall German with a strange smell on his breath. He stood very straight in front of his small house, and his wife hated him, and his children thought him odd. I was 6 the first time we met, and he gave me all his war medals. The second time I met him, he gave me his gold pocket watch. It was very heavy, and I took it home and wound it very tight, and it stopped running, which made me feel bad. I never saw him again, and my parents never spoke of him, nor did my grandmother, who had long ago stopped living with him. Once I asked about him, and they told me he drank too much, but I liked him best, standing very straight in front of his house and saying, "Hello, Henry. You and I, we know each other." Right, time for some more ale before we continue. I have Bluebird marked in the book as well, but I don't know. I mean, it's like so read so many times. I'm not sure that would be a good thing to read now. Maybe if we have slightly bit more time. Let's see. Okay, I just looked at the video as well. I'm starting to be offensive here. I steamed up a lot of people, I think. Or maybe 2? Yeah, I'm just gonna steam up that person as well. Yeah, there we go. That's how I remember it as well. Cool. It all works. The system works. Alright, let's see what we can read now. So, we have the Bluebird, potentially. Then, we also have Tired in the After Dusk. Already read that. What's here? World's Greatest Loser, that's pretty cool. Okay, The History of a Tough Motherfucker, and we've read that. Take this out. Close Encounters of Another Kind is also good. And The Fisherman is also good. Okay, let's read The Fisherman. I like The Fisherman. He came out at 7:30 a.m. every day. with 3 peanut butter sandwiches, and there's 1 can of beer which he floats in the bait bucket. He fishes for hours with a small trout pole 3/4 of the way down the pier. He's 75 years old and the sun doesn't tan him, and no matter how hot it gets, the brown and green lumberjack stays on. He catches starfish, baby sharks, and mackerel. He catches them by the dozen, speaks to nobody. Sometime during the day, he drinks his can of beer. At 6 p.m., he gathers his gear and his catch, walks down the pier, across several streets, where he enters a small Santa Monica apartment, goes to the bedroom and opens the evening paper, as his wife throws the starfish, the sharks, the mackerel into the garbage. He lights his pipe and waits for dinner. That's Fisherman. Now we can move on to Close Encounters of Another Kind. This one's what do they call it nowadays? I don't know what they call it nowadays. This one's pretty sexual, so I mean, if you're too young, you shouldn't really be here anyway, because XCOM is 18 rated. Just saying, you know, maybe you're not ready for this. It's nothing like too bad. Anyway, this is called Close Encounters of Another Kind. Are we going to the movies or not? She asked him. Alright, he said, let's go. I'm not going to put any panties on so you can finger fuck me in the dark, she said. Should we get buttered popcorn? He asked. Sure, she said. Leave your panties on, he said. What is it? She asked. I just want to watch the movie, he answered. Look, she said, I could go out on the street. There are hundreds of men out there who'd be delighted to have me. Alright, he said, go ahead. Go ahead out there. I'll stay home and read the National Enquirer. You son of a bitch, she said. I'm trying to build a meaningful relationship. You can't build it with a hammer, he said. Are we going to the movies or not? She asked. Alright, he said, let's go. At the corner of Western and Franklin, he put on the blinker to make his left turn, and the man in the oncoming lane speeded up as if to cut him off. Brakes grabbed, there wasn't a crash, but there almost was one. He cursed at the man in the other car, the man cursed back. The man had another person in the car with him. It was his wife. They were going to the movies too. Okay, so that's Close Encounters of Another Kind. He probably wrote this after he went to see Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I mean, I would imagine that would more or less be the time when this happened. Anyhow, so we got left The World's Greatest Loser and Tired in the After Dusk, and also The Bluebird. And there's also, oh no, there's another one. And this one is If We Take. Alright, cool. That's cool. That's cool. Ale time. Alright, what's up in our video here? I'm down to 3? Ooh. Oh, 4. Okay. So I haven't lost the game yet. I think you're making a mistake of the person who is the most, how to say now, like north, furthest away right now. I take that person even further away. I think that's the mistake I made. I shouldn't have disjointed my squad so much. But I mean, that's just only one of the mistakes I made throughout this game. If you have any questions, by the way, about the game, feel free to. Just because I'm reading poetry doesn't mean I like it. I didn't give a shit about the game. I did actually. I was trying very hard to win. It just didn't really work out. But since I'm not commenting, and you know, you got some questions of what happened, just give me a time reference from the video, and I'll answer all your questions. Yeah, okay. So now I'm going to read The World's Greatest Loser. This one is about the racetrack. If you know nothing about Bukowski, by the way, if you know nothing about Bukowski, he was an American poet, lived in the 20th century, was born in the 20s, died in the 90s, about he was 70 something. He is the most famous drunk poet, maybe. you know, that was kind of his image as well, and he was constantly drunk. Went through different kind of all kinds of women and all kinds of relationships throughout his life. He became famous around 50, 55. I mean, his age. And before that, he quit writing at 24, and he just went like bumming around USA. And then around 35, he started writing again. And about 20, almost 20, 15, 20 years down the road, he started to become like quite famous. He is right now as well quite famous. Died, I think, in 93. And if you haven't never read him, and if you don't really like poetry, just check out his prose. Maybe start with Post Office. That's pretty good. If you work in a dead-end job, read Post Office. Maybe it's gonna be interesting. You may find something, some similarities with your day-to-day bullshit. Anyway, this is The World's Greatest Loser, and it's about a racetrack, because you know how many writers, they're also gamblers. So, like Dostoevsky, for example, he went to casinos all the time, apparently, or so I've been told. Or Hemingway, he went to these bullfights when he lived in Spain. So, and so on and so forth. So there's always this sort of addiction, I guess, or not always, but often present in at least in men. I don't know how this works for female writers. I really don't know much about their addiction. If you do know, please put it in the comments. So the addiction of Bukowski was the racetrack. He went to the racetrack I think not every day, but several times a week, definitely. So, and this is happening kind of at the racetrack. This is about the people at the racetrack. The World's Greatest Loser. He used to sell papers in front. Get your winners, get rich on a dime, and about a third or fourth race you'd see him rolling in on his rotten board with roller skates underneath. He'd propel himself along on his hands. He just had small stumps for legs, and the rims of the skate wheels were worn off. You could see inside the wheels, and they would wobble, something awful shooting and flashing imperialistic sparks. He moved faster than anybody, rolled cigarette dangling. You could hear him coming. God almighty, what was that? Anyone asked. He was the world's greatest loser, but he never gave up. Wheeling toward the $2 window, screaming, "It's the fourth horse, you fools! How the hell you gonna beat the 4? Up on the board, the 4 would be reading 60-1. I never heard him pick a winner. They say he slept in the bushes. I guess that's where he died. He's not around anymore." There was the big fat blonde whore who kept touching him for luck and laughing. Nobody had any luck. The whore is gone too. I guess nothing ever works for us. We're fools, of course. Bucking the inside plus a 15% take. But how are you going to tell a dreamer there's a 15% take on his dream? He'll just laugh and say, "Is that all?" I miss those sparks. And that was The World's Greatest Loser. And now time for more ale for me. Oh, I was really happy about that when that happened. Captain Johansson died. I was like, we could still maybe win this. Because I think at this point it was like 3 against 4, maybe, but like I think 1 or 2 of them are wounded, something like that. So I was kind of still hopeful, but also very tired. So because Shen is in USA, obviously. Here he runs out of time, and but I don't manage to use it anyway. Because Shen's in USA, and I'm here in London. There's about 7-hour difference, or 8 or something. So so I was the nice guy, obviously, as I always am. And we were playing this around like midnight or 1 a.m. my time. I'm meant to be playing with him today as well. Today meaning the 13th of January, 7 o'clock in the evening in London. Anyway, so she should show up like sometime soon. We have to do the second match, and if I win this third one, but I'm very doubtful of that. Soon on the screen, I'm going to be making a fatal mistake. At least Ruben Medina is going to be making a fatal mistake. But I am going to be reading a poem entitled Tired in the After Dusk. This is, I think, is one of his later poems when he got already famous, and he was living more or less comfortably for the first time in his life. And he was living with his wife, his second wife, I think. And apparently they were quite happy, or so I hear. So this is called Tired in the After Dusk. Smoking a cigarette and noting a mosquito who has flattened out against the wall and died. As organ music from centuries back plays through my black radio, as downstairs my wife watches a rented video on the VCR. This is the space between spaces. This is when the ever-war relents for just a moment. This is when you consider the inconsiderate years. The fight has been wearing, but at times interesting, such as resting quickly here in the after dusk as the sound of the centuries run through my body. This old dog resting in the shade, peaceful, but ready. It was very important for Bukowski to, he often talked about fight, and it's like kind of like how life is a fight, which, you know, I guess it's not like a very stretched metaphor. It makes sense, and how we cannot win it in any way. I guess in a way because everyone dies, but also in a way because there's just no way. You lose something. There's always a compromise. No one can have everything even within their lifetime, because we have to do with other people, and our wishes and desires will never completely match, because, after all, we're different. So fighting a good fight was very important for him. He often talks about this in his poetry as well. And now this is The Bluebird, which is probably the most famous poem by Bukowski. I don't know if we're gonna have time for another one after this one. Maybe if we do, I'm gonna read one more. So it's either one more poem or two. Let's see how it goes. So anyway, I've seen people also have a tattoo of a bluebird on them, like because of this poem and so on. So it's it's out there. Anyway, The Bluebird. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too tough for him. I say, stay in there. I'm not going to let anybody see you. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I pour whiskey on him and inhale cigarette smoke, and the whores and the bartenders and the grocery clerks never know that he's in there. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too tough for him. I say, stay down. Do you want to mess me up? You want to screw up the works? You want to blow my book sales in Europe? There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too clever. I only let him out at night sometimes. When everybody is asleep, I say, I know that you are there, so don't be sad. Then I put him back, but he's singing a little. In there, I haven't quite let him die, and we sleep together like that with our secret pact, and it's nice enough to make a man weep. But I don't weep. Do you? So Bluebird. It's quite strange that, I guess it's because you're a fan of somebody, that their most popular thing is kind of still one of your favorite of their thing. Sometimes it doesn't really work that way, but I guess that is only when you kind of like someone, but your favorite song or your favorite book is the one that was kind of not very noticed or something like that. But yes, I do like Bluebird a lot, and I guess many people can relate. I'm not the only one who can relate to like a mega famous poem. Anyway, so I think, how much time we got here? We got enough time for another gulp of ale and another poem. Alright, this is gonna be over pretty soon. Even then, when I killed this guy, I was like, oh, there is a chance. But there was never a chance. Kind of like in this poem. but it's a bit ambiguous. It's called If We Take. If we take what we can see, the engines driving us mad, lovers finally hating, the fish in the market staring upward into our minds, flowers rotting, flies web caught, riots, roars of caged lions, clowns in love with their dollar bills, nations moving people like pawns, daylight thieves with beautiful nighttime wives and wines, the crowded jails, the commonplace unemployment, dying grass, two-bit fires, men old enough to love the grave. These things and others in content show life swinging on a rotten axis. But they've left us a bit of music and a spike show in the corner. A jigger of scotch, a blue necktie, a small volume of poems by Rimbaud, a horse running as if the devil were twisting his tail, over bluegrass and screaming, and then love again, like a streetcar turning the corner on time. The city waiting, the wine and the flowers, the water walking across the lake, and summer and winter and summer and summer and winter again. Oh, that was perfect timing. Cool. So this was my match against Sankuzen, Shin Sankuzen, who you probably know by now if you like XCOM. He is the best player I've seen. I mean, according to me, I'm not sure. Maybe the tournament, which will eventually happen, should probably start like in about a week once we're done with the tests. Uploading this video is also part of the test. You'll maybe, that will determine who is actually the best and who isn't. But as far as, like I said, as far as I can see, he is the best player out there. Unless there's some players on Xbox or PS3 and I just don't know them. It was a very interesting match. Again, please don't take me reading poetry instead of commentating the match. I did comment kind of a little bit as a sign that I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed it very much. It was also very exhausting, but in a good way, because it kind of took all your faculties to manage and win. I didn't, but again, it's really cool. And I'm very thankful for you guys for watching this and for staying subscribed, and some of you also say you love the videos. That's pretty cool. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.